Some people say they can't hear me. Some people say they can't. Woo, thank God. I've been talking. So this is Dr. Kia Pruitt. Welcome. It is Saturday night, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let us know where you're checking in from. People say, yes, they can hear me. Thank God. This is, again, January the 18th, 2 days before President Trump takes center stage to give his inauguration speech. And as I said before, when I was muted, it's also the birthday commemoration or celebration of Martin Luther King's birthday. So I was getting ready for bed, and I thought I would come on and maybe we can just discuss what we think is going to happen, because a lot within these last, I want to say 24 hours has occurred. And I've been trying to put certain things up in my community, on my community tab on my YouTube channel. But I said, let me just get on and have a brief conversation about what we think is going to happen. Somebody says, go Eagles, Trump. Hi, California. I see you in the house. Hi, family. New Jersey's in the house. Okay, glad you guys can hear me. So I wanted to come on because, like I said, we only have 2 more days. But yesterday, was that yesterday? Yes, on the 17th. I don't know if you all saw that, but United States Secretary Treasurer, or the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States, said that the United States must take extraordinary measures to avoid a debt limit breach on January the 21st, the day after Trump is inaugurated. So I thought, well, she's probably going to be replaced. Why is she telling us we need to take extraordinary measures and do something right away? And I thought, well, if we're going to have a debt limit breach, what are the extraordinary measures that could be taken? Well, you could pay off the debt. And we know that we already have gold, right? We have gold, and gold will destroy the Fed, is what Q said, and what some of the military people have been telling us. We have gold. So you could pay off the debt. And then you have rumors that are saying that the debt has been paid off behind the scenes. Or you can have a debt jubilee and you can forgive the debt, right? Or you can do a currency exchange, or you can do a currency exchange whereby everybody who have currencies can then have wealth, and we could put the money in the banks, our currencies in the banks. And you guys know that the currencies, the tier 2 currencies, are supposed to be able to bolster the health of the banks. So as I told you all before, banks met globally to determine their preparedness to receive tier 2 assets. So there's some chatter behind the scenes that are saying that everything's ready. All of the currencies are ready to be exchanged. All of the currencies and the countries are ready to be reinstated back to their pre-war values and back to their pre-sanction rates. So let's talk about how Janet Yellen said that, oh my God, this is a problem here. We need to take extraordinary measures to avoid a debt limit breach. She said that last year, and she's saying it again this year. And she just said that on the 17th, the same day that President Trump announced that he's not going to have an outside inauguration. Why do you think he's not having an outside inauguration? There's many reasons why he's not having an outside inauguration. Keep checking in, family. People are saying, I wonder what his speech will be tomorrow. Me too. Oh, the Redskins versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Okay. Well, we know that the Chiefs on the land are in control. The Chiefs are back in control, and the indigenous people, the autonomous people, they're back in control of their governments and their lawful republics. So I just want to show you what Janet Yellen said, and I'm not going to be on long, excuse me, tonight. This is what she said on yesterday, on the 17th number, right? 17 represents Q. 17 is the highest clearance for government officials and political officials. And we know that the 17 people with 17 clearance have been dropping intel and giving people in the truther movement certain information to spread to the masses. So this is what she said. Is that the right one? No, that's not it. I think this is, hold on, family. Yeah, that is the right one. So Janet Yellen, U.S. Treasury to launch measures to avoid a debt limit breach on Tuesday. So she's saying that we could breach the debt limit on Tuesday, the day after President Trump gives his inauguration speech. We also know that Tuesday, January 21st, is a very important date because that's when you're going to see 5 planets that will align, and it will be visible that you'll see it. You can look that up. We talked about that yesterday. One of our family members, soul family members, emailed me and told me that she asked someone who understands and overstands astrology, astronomy, and things that go on in the heavens, what that meant. And her friend said that alignment was about us entering into the golden age. So again, you will see 5 planets in alignment on January 21st, and it will be visible to the eye, and it will last between the 21st and the 27th. That is actually the day that Janet Yellen said we could reach a breach. And now there are 4 key components of this article. She says in her letter that the Treasury will reach a debt ceiling on Tuesday. She says that the Treasury will dip into 2 government employees' benefit funds, and that's the way that we could take care of this breach, is by dipping into the funds of government workers or their retirement funds. And then thirdly, the third point of this article is that Trump's Treasury pick Bessette says that we will have a debt ceiling nuance. And the fourth component of this article is that Yellen urges Congress to protect the United States' ability to pay the debts. So again, how will we handle this debt breach? You could pay off the debt. It's not that hard. We have found how much? We had 3.25 billion metric tons of rare earth minerals that were discovered. 2.34 billion metric tons of rare earth minerals that were discovered in Wyoming alone last year. So we have rare earth minerals. We have gold. We know we have gold flowing along the Colorado River. We know we have gold in many forts. We know we have gold in Phoenix and Arizona. We have gold to pay off the debt. So you could pay off the debt. You could do a debt jubilee, and you can have a foreign currency exchange. That's Dr. Kia Pruitt talking. But let's see what Janet Yellen is talking about. Keep checking in, family. She said on yesterday that the government will reach its statutory borrowing limit on Tuesday and begin employing extraordinary measures to keep from breaching the cap and risking a potential catastrophic default. President Trump is not going to allow that to happen. Okay, we'll talk about how I know that. Yellen, in a letter on Friday to congressional leaders, just 3 days before the Biden administration turns over United States government control to President Trump, and his team, said the Treasury would begin using extraordinary measures. Now, speaking of Biden stepping down, we know that he gave his farewell speech, right? He said bye, and he gave his farewell speech on January 15th, which is actually Martin Luther King's actual birthday. Now, we know he commemorate the birthday celebration on January 20, but he said goodbye on the King's birthday. Isn't that interesting? So she said in a letter that we must take extraordinary measures on the 21st. The period of time that extraordinary measures may last is subject to considerable uncertainty, including the challenges of forecasting the payments and receipt of the United States government months in the future, Yellen said in her letter. She said the Treasury will suspend investments in 2 government employee benefits funds through March 14th to claw back borrowing capacity under the $36.1 trillion debt ceiling. As of Thursday, the Treasury reported borrowing $36 trillion. So we've breached or reached a debt ceiling, and we've reached a debt ceiling crisis. But I would say that there's nothing, honestly, to be worried about, because we already know that President Trump made a statement that prosperity will begin on day one. And we covered that yesterday. He said he's coming in with guns blazing. Prosperity will begin on day one. Now, we know that his speech will not happen outside as he had anticipated because of the Arctic blast. Why is there an Arctic blast covering America? Okay, what does the Arctic blast mean? What does it represent? Now, when you look at codes and you understand how they do things, how the empire works, and when you don't are like me and you have some people like my friends who are the Moors and some other people that just understand and overstand gematria codes and all that, they tell you that the empire of the United States Incorporated has frozen. That's why we have this Arctic blast. Okay. Everything has ceased. You have the government coming to a screeching halt. You have the debt ceiling being breached, reaching a screeching halt. They can't go any further. They've reached a ceiling. Their time is up. The storm is here. No more, the storm is coming. We are already here, family. So we know that President Trump said he's coming out with guns blazing. And let me show you why he said we're not going to have an outdoor inauguration speech, which if I were him, I wouldn't have one either, because you can't trust these people. They might try to take his life. They've had so many attempts on this man's life because they don't want him to take control or center stage as the president or commander in chief. President Trump took to his Truth Social, and this is what he said. January the 20th cannot come fast enough. Everybody, even those initially opposed the victory by President Donald Trump and the Trump administration, just want it to happen. It's my obligation to protect the people of our country. But before we even begin, we have to think of the inauguration itself, Trump said. The weather forecast for Washington, D.C., with the wind chill factor, could take temperatures into severe record lows. There is an Arctic blast sweeping the country, and I don't want to see the people hurt or injured, he said. He says it's dangerous. There will be dangerous conditions for the tens of thousands of law enforcement, first responders, police canines, and even horses, and hundreds of thousands of supporters that will be outside for many hours on the 20th. In any event, if you desire to come, dress warmly, he says, but he has therefore ordered the inauguration address, in addition to prayers and other speeches, to be delivered in the United States Capitol Rotunda, as was used by Ronald Reagan in 1985, also because of very cold weather. And he talks about the various dignitaries and guests, how they'll be brought into the Capitol. This will be a very beautiful experience for us all. So he says that they will open Capital One Arena on Monday for a live viewing of his historic event and to host the presidential parade. And he says he will join the crowd at Capital One after my swearing in. I would be interested in seeing what the symbolic meaning of Capital One is. Why is he meeting there? I know that, that's what happened under the Reagan administration, but he will be inside. He will be inside because of the Arctic blast. And we know that this Arctic blast is covering all or a great part of America. So if anybody doesn't know about that, some people haven't experienced it yet. We haven't in Florida yet. It was like 58, 59 degrees here in Jacksonville, Florida, but we've been told that the cold weather is coming and we might even have snow Monday or Tuesday. And since we might have extremely cold temperatures, just like we're going to have an Arctic blast, other parts of the country, our parade for the Martin Luther King celebration has been canceled. So a lot of activities have been canceled. A lot of people are going to be indoors, which makes me wonder if we even need this emergency broadcast system announcement that we've been anticipating. We might not even have an emergency broadcast system announcement, or we may, but if everybody's going to be indoors, since it's going to be cold and there's going to have this Arctic blast, then President Trump may very well let us know about this war against the deep state. And I want to talk to you about in just a few minutes how he already said he's coming out with guns blazing. He said prosperity begins on day one, and he talks about attacking the deep state. So before I get into that, let me just show you this information about the Arctic blast. Keep checking in, family. Here is an article that says have preparations that have been taken for this Arctic blast, freezing temperatures, and snowstorms that are coming in to sweep across America. Now, there was one article that said it will happen the first week of January. And so you did have many states that experienced extremely low temperatures the first week of January. But now this article is talking about the second week of January, how more cold weather is coming in to sweep the nation. It says that preparations are underway as an Arctic blast drives into the nation's interior and southern regions, and pushes a snowstorm into the mid-Atlantic and northeast that will be followed by lethal cold. In key messages on the icy atmosphere, the National Weather Service said today that it could produce the coldest air of the season thus far, and in many cases, the coldest in several years. So that leads us to wonder if this Arctic blast is something that they actually initiated on purpose to keep people indoors. So, what would be the purposes of that, so that everybody could be paying attention to President Trump's speech, so that everybody could be indoors in case somebody tries to stage something like an attack because President Trump finally made it to become the commander in chief, and because we really may have an emergency broadcast system announcement. So for those of you who haven't prepared, they've been talking about preparedness. The articles that came out the end of December, the 1st of January, have been saying prepare for an Arctic blast. Why? Because not only do they want you to prepare for cold weather, but the empire has fallen. The United States incorporation has frozen. And some people will tell you, like my friend Murray has said, that may be one of the coded messages and reasons for why Trump sent his son to Greenland, another Arctic cold place. Is symbolism. Now we know that they're looking for rare earth minerals that are there in Greenland. We know a lot of secret things were going on over there in Greenland, but also we know that when they do things to teach us or to show us that they are actually making moves. Just like the Pope opened those doors, the portals, the jubilee portals. And that represents us entering an age of jubilee season, debts being forgiven, and entering in prosperity. Trump's son going to Greenland also represents the empire being frozen, the United States incorporation moving to a cold Arctic area. Everything's on ice now. So again, Janet Yellen mentioned yesterday that the United States must take extraordinary measures to avoid a debt limit breach. And I'm saying you can pay off the debt, you can enter in or announce a jubilee, and you can have a currency exchange. Okay. And in terms of a jubilee, we know that there was an article out by Zero Hedge that said a debt jubilee was coming. Remember that? I showed you that article. And anytime you see mainstream media or major publications talk about things like this, you know that it's about to happen. And this Zero Hedge article, who was this? Tyler Durden announced a debt jubilee of biblical proportion is coming. Are you ready? He says 4,000 years ago, the rulers of ancient Babylon discovered a technique to stave off violent revolts. In ancient times, people often became hopelessly indebted to their creditors. As debts mounted, social unrest would boil over, threatening the stability of the entire ruling system. The rulers of the ancient world understood this dangerous dynamic. Their solution was a radical yet effective. Remember, Janet Yellen said we must take extraordinary measures. Here he says their solution was a radical yet effective method. They enacted a widespread debt jubilee or debt cancellation. Debt jubilees acted as societal pressures released valves when no other options remained. Okay, you saw Janet Yellen said, oh, we've reached the debt ceiling. We don't have many options. We might have to dip into the retirement accounts of government workers. Here, Darden is saying, no, we could just do a debt jubilee. And that's what other economists have been saying. Just forgive the debts. Just wipe out the debt, and any debts that you don't wipe out, you just pay off the debt. We have gold, we have rare earth minerals. So not only that, but President Trump came out in statements on the 17th, the 16th, and the 17th saying we are going to experience wealth and prosperity from day one. And he even spoke of 11 points that he's going to do. And I've shown you the articles on yesterday. He said, when I come out on day one, I'm going to establish an external revenue service instead of an internal revenue service. In other words, he said, I'm going to get rid of the IRS, and I'm going to tax other countries that desire to do business with us. So look forward to an external revenue service. He said he's going to do it with the stroke of a pen. He's going to issue out an executive order to get rid of the IRS. He said, number two, I'm going to impose a 25% tariff on all imports from Canada and Mexico. And I'm going to put an additional 10% tariff on everything coming out of China. That's going to be one of my first executive orders, he said. So that's two. The third thing he said he's going to do is I'm going to sign a new executive order to cut federal funding from any school that's pushing critical race theory or transforming for transgenderism. Cut all funding or any schools that will do that. He said, not only am I doing that, but any schools that try to initiate any inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content in their curriculum, I'm not going for it. And I want to say, in addition to that third point, he also has an incentive. It was a tax incentive of like $10,000 for anybody that wants to homeschool their children. I think that's amazing, family. Prosperity begins day one, he says. The fourth component, he says, the fourth thing he's going to do on day one is cut funding to any schools that has a vaccine mandate. Okay, he's coming out with guns blazing. He said the fifth thing I'm going to do is I'm going to launch the largest deportation program in American history. He said because a lot of the crimes that were happening here in America were crimes that were happened or initiated by illegal people here. And you have to know that many people that came here were criminals. A lot of MS-13 gang members were actually crossing the border, posing as Mexicans, posing as, being immigrants or migrants that just wanted to come over here for good opportunities. A lot of them had nefarious, intents. So he's going to launch the largest deportation program in history. The sixth component was in the electric vehicle mandate that the Biden administration said we had to have, because many of those electric vehicle parts came from China and they're expensive. Those electric vehicles are expensive. They're inconvenient. It takes a long time to charge them up. You might as well buy gas, okay, instead of sitting for hours. I have family members that rented electrical vehicles and they say it's a nuisance. So Trump is going to do away with that. That's the sixth component. Sixth thing he's going to do. Day one. The seventh thing he's going to do is sign the pardons for J6 political prisoners, because many of them should never have been detained. A lot of them have been released, but he said, with one stroke of the pen, I'm going to issue out an executive order to completely pardon them. Now, if you know that it is a constitutional right for us to go into the Capitol and actually kick out these people that never sworn an allegiance to our Constitution. We showed you that yesterday. I showed you the document of the woman who actually brought a lawsuit against the whole Biden administration and said none of them swore an allegiance. There's nothing on record that said they do. And when they were given 10 days to prove that they had sworn an allegiance, they hadn't shown that. Okay, so they all have to get out of here. Not only have they not sworn in allegiance to the Constitution, but most of them have Esquire behind their name. A lot of the so-called lawmakers or Congress people, they have Esquire behind their name. Do you know that Esquire is a title of nobility? Thank you so much. God bless you. Heaven smile on you for the $20 blessing. Do you know Esquire is a title of nobility? And if you have a title of nobility behind your name, you may not serve the people. That means with Esquire behind your name, that means you are a lawyer, not a lawyer, an attorney. There's two different, an attorney is not a lawyer. Lawyers actually understand constitutional law and practice law, and not practice law, they actually uh, do law. Okay, they can enforce law, they create laws. Well, these esquires passed a British accredited registry. That means they passed the bar exam. And since they have a title of nobility and passed a bar exam, that means they work for the British crown, the queen, and not we the people. So they got to get out of there anyway. Okay. So President Trump is coming out with guns blazing. Let me get back here. And let's see. He also said he is going to, we talked about, so what I was saying was you can literally take out all those people who have titles of nobility. You can remove anybody that has staged a coup d'etat against your government constitutionally. You can even establish a militia. So one of the J6ers that was in the Capitol actually staked the totem pole. Remember, he had on Native American or indigenous garb. He was actually a military person, um, who was on special assignment. He staked the totem pole. He was reclaiming the Capitol for the indigenous people and we the people, all of us Americans, and taking back the house. Remember, the Capitol is the people's house. It doesn't belong to those people who staged the coup d'etat and took over our government. So many of the J6ers should be set free, and they have been. And President Trump said he's going to sign those pardons. That was the 7th thing he said he was going to do. The 8th thing he said he's going to do is he's going to declare a national emergency and approve new energy projects. Remember, he said, drill, baby, drill. On day 1, he's going to have new energy projects so that we can drill for oil ourselves and not become dependent on who was that, Saudi Arabia or anybody else. We can take care of our own. The 8th thing was that drill, baby, drill, and declare a national emergency and approve new energy projects. The 9th thing he said he was going to do was end the Russia-Ukraine war, which you all know behind the scenes what that war was really about. It was about uncovering all the stuff that was going on in Ukraine with the African trade of children, with the African trade, we're speaking pig Latin, of Uggs Dre, or what people do, smoke and drink, money laundering and all that type of thing. So he's going to end the Ukrainian war, which had to occur so that Putin can actually clean out the deep underground military bases and expose all the things that presidents and leaders were doing over there. Number 10, he's going to fire or neutralize federal workers that opposed him, the articles say. But why is he firing those workers that oppose him? Because in essence, what he's doing is dismantling the deep state. Remember, we showed you articles that said that he was going to downsize the government. He's not doing this of his own volition, which we're glad he's doing it, but the Supreme Court of the United States actually overturned the Chevron doctrine. The overturning of the Chevron doctrine actually dismantles the deep state, because what they said was that governments were actually, or government agencies had taken it upon themselves, like the FBI, CIA, IRS, they were taking upon themselves to create statutes, policies, codes, legalities to force us to abide by. And then if we didn't, they would put fines on us. Like, you have to get a driver's license to drive. You have to get a license to become a credit repair specialist. You have to have a license to become a counselor, all these type of things. You can't grow food in your own backyard if you are part of an HOA. So the homeowners association will have to be dismantled or at least modified. So I showed you a list of 441 so-called federal agencies. So the Supreme Court said, this Chevron doctrine that had said that all these fake federal agencies could come up with any of their rules that they wanted to and force the people to abide by them are treasonous and unconstitutional. And any judge that allowed that to happen, if people were forced to pay a fine and they had to go to court, and the judge that allowed it to happen and deferred back deferred the people back to these government agencies, then those judges have committed treason. Any judge that knew of a judge that deferred back to those agencies and made people abide by those rules, that knew about it, they committed misprision of treason. So the Supreme Court of the United States overturning the Chevron doctrine or Chevron deference means that now all of these corporate agencies, these federal agencies, are treasonous, constitutional, and must be dismantled. And that's why President Trump says he's firing or neutralizing federal workers. The article says that opposed him. The deep state, in other words, he's dismantling the deep state. He also said he's going to close the border and reinstate travel bans. So President Trump said that those are the 11 things he's going to do coming out the gate. And he said that alone, those things alone would usher in prosperity. He said, as a matter of fact, imposing tariffs on these governments and these other countries is going to make our country rich, and it's going to save Americans money. Now, I don't know if you all knew this, but before we even had the IRS, and we would impose taxes upon the people, the government would make money by imposing taxes on other countries. If they wanted to, bring in goods and services or goods, from the other countries, we would just put a tax on them. But I don't know what happened or who did this, but when you saw other people come in, probably these foreign people who are not Americans that started taking over office, when they came in, they stopped putting tariffs on these other countries and they start putting tariffs or taxes on we the people. But now all that money you've paid to the IRS is coming back to you. The IRS has already closed. We've already talked to IRS officials and asked the question, is it true that your duties have been put under the umbrella of the United States Treasury Department? And we have been told, because I and my daughter asked, they said yes. The United States Treasury, they handle all the money. We're no longer handling any of those responsibilities. And this is why people aren't getting any notifications from the IRS. Some people aren't getting any phone calls return from the IRS because most of them are not there. You just have minions there. The duties, again, of the IRS workers have been put underneath the umbrella of the United States Treasury Department, and President Trump did that under his first administration. I know he never left, but before he publicly left office, he already did that. So you guys are going to get all that money back, okay, that you have paid or I have paid to the IRS. All of it's coming back. That alone, and then not having to pay them in the future, is going to make us rich. Not even mentioning the NESARA, the National Economic Security Reformation Act, coming into our reality, or the global version of that, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. When that happens, we know that all the IRS money is going to be returned, all the mortgage money you've ever paid is going to be returned, all the loans that you paid off, like credit card, what is car loans, what else is it? Bank loans, student loans, all that money is coming back to you, as well as money that's in your Treasury direct accounts and money that's attached to your birth certificate bond. So people have asked me, where's that money coming from? It can't just come from nowhere. No, baby. When we were born, we all had a birth certificate, for most of us anyway, and the hospital then sent those birth certificates off. Those birth certificates were securitized and they were traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And then they accrued money and interest, and that money was put in a trust. So all that money is coming right back to you. Again, in addition to the money that you've paid out, it's coming right back to you. So what some people are saying, that under NESARA and DESARA, people will receive tens of thousands of dollars per month in a non-interest bearing account. Some people say for up to 11 years. So we have to be good stewards of that money, because if it's only going to be in the non-interest bearing account for 11 years, then you want to make sure you don't spend that money haphazardly. But I've heard it could be, $10,000 a month or more. But you have to be 21 years of age. And we did see one country already start that process, and that is the country Guyana. I've shown you all this before, but I'll show you again, just so you can see that there is a template for this. Now, I know we've been talking about Nasara and Jasara for many years, I think it's since 2017, but now we finally see a country that, that said that they're doing this. And this is Guyana in South America. Let's see if I can get rid of this here. Okay. Every adult in Guyana will receive $100,000. This article came out, I want to say I know it was last year, the end of last year. I believe it was October. Yes, October the 17th. There's that number, 17th of last year, 2024. President Ali yesterday, that was in October, announced a revision to his previously announced cash grant incentive, saying that instead of the one-off $200,000 per household payment, each citizen 18 years and older. This article says 18 years. Another article says 21 years and older will receive, you see this, a one-off cash grant of $100,000. To be eligible, recipients will have to show proof of Guyanese citizenship by the way of national identification. And another stipulation is that they must be in country. There was another article that says if you live abroad, you may receive this stipend as long as you're over 21 and you're in country. That's what we've been saying all along, is a stipulation of Nasara and Jasara. So the president says, I now wish to announce that instead of the one-off cash grant of $200,000 to every household previously announced, my government will expand this benefit by providing a one-off cash grant of $100,000 to every adult citizen of Guyana who would have attained the age of 18 by the 1st of January. As of the 1st of January, 2024. And another article says that all of the monies will be paid out to Guyanese residents or Guyanese sovereigns or nationals by January of 2025. So I'll put that article in the description section for you to see. I just want you to know that that is a template for how other nations may handle these Nasara and Jasara benefits. So another thing that has happened is, TikTok is supposed to be banned, and hear a lot of people, stressing out about that. That's why I named this TikTok, their time is up, because remember, family, they do everything in codes. So I do want to give accolades to my friend Murray, who understands codes, gematria, and all that. He and I were having a discussion about this, and he was saying, people are going frantic for no reason. They're talking about TikTok's going to be over. Oh my God, we won't be able to hear the truth, and everybody's sharing information. But if you remember, everything is in codes. Okay, TikTok being banned could also mean that the government that was in place, the elites, their empire has frozen. Their time is up. Okay. This is why we had the Arctic blast. Okay. We know that they need everybody to be in the house, but I'm just saying, this is the way they operate. This is the way they move. But when you think about it, everybody was all up in the tizzy about Twitter. All they did though was just had somebody else to buy out Twitter. Yes. So maybe they're going to do away with TikTok altogether, because we do know that the Chinese Communist Party allegedly owned TikTok. So maybe they would dismantle it, or maybe somebody else would buy them out. So a lot of people who share the truth are allowed to share the truth on TikTok, but then you have people like me every time I'll upload videos, they take my videos down and they say that I go against community standards. They've banned me for life for about 5 or 6 times. I just keep putting up TikTok videos. Same things happened to John F. Kennedy Jr., also known as David Quigley. Every time he tries to tell his story on TikTok, they ban him. I have other friends like Ron Anthony, who tries to share information about the takedown of the deep state. They take down his videos. So they only allow certain information on TikTok. Other truthers, they don't allow. Because if you talk about President Trump taking down the deep state, or you talk about John F. Kennedy Jr. being alive, now if you talk about the fake one, his body double, George, the one who wrote George magazine, if you talk about George Onassis, the son of Aristotle Onassis and Maria Callas, the opera singer, his mistress, you talk about that body double, the one everybody else know as John F. Kennedy Jr. still being alive, then they won't say anything. But if you talk about JF Kennedy Jr., also known as David Quigley, who was protected by the Hells Angels and put in a program, a protective program, and now has come out, and you talk about how he has been abused by the deep state and abused by the government, and how his money was stolen from the Kennedy family, and how they unalived or did away with or made his entire bloodline, then they'll take you down from TikTok. Why? If they're a benevolent platform that just wants the truth to come out. Again, we know that Trump, somebody said that the app is literally gone. Is it gone already? I know it was supposed to be gone. President Trump, they're saying, is trying to stop the ban, or was trying to stop the ban. But, you know, these people play games. I don't know if you guys remember. I remember him saying he was going to ban TikTok before he left office, because he said it was owned by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. But people have short-term memory. But now he's got to play the game and say he's against it. And I'm okay with that, because maybe he knows that somebody else is going to buy it. Okay. Wow. Now it says TikTok isn't available right now. But just before I went live, and that's why I have this website up. Before I went live, this is TikTok.com. Right before I went live, right before 9 o'clock, you could still see TikTok. And at the top, it had a message that said that they were about to be banned. That's crazy. Just 44 minutes later, this is the ban. It says, sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. A law banning TikTok has been enacted in the United States. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok for now. Good. I'm okay with that. If it was owned by the CCP or the Chinese Communist Party or their minions, then bye. But I also understand and overstand the symbolism. The symbolism is that TikTok, their time is up, the CCP's time is up, and the deep state, who was controlled by the CCP, their time is up. That's why 400 million people that were a part of the Chinese Communist Party defected from the Chinese Communist Party last year. I'll show you the article. So you still had many of the some of the minions that were still up, that were still operating, but 400 million from the comment. Oh, I don't see that anymore. I'm looking for the article. 400 million defected. Here it is. They had a celebration in New York called Tai Dong to celebrate 400 million people leaving the CCP. Chinese Tai Dong movement counts 400 million people who have renounced communism. 400 million people have cut off ties from the Chinese Communist Party since the beginning of the peaceful, they call it peaceful movement to Tai Dong, to quit the party. The movement started in November 2000 with the publication of the 9 commentaries of the Communist Party, an editorial series that examined the ideological foundations and misrule of the world's deadliest regime. At this moment, a person writes, I'm honored to offer 400 million sons and daughters of the Chinese nation my heartfelt congratulations, because 400 million people stood out and withdrew from the CCP under its totalitarian dictatorship. This is a miracle, and it will surely inspire even more Chinese to follow suit. This is a beautiful article that talks about how the Chinese Communist Party had overtaken China and much of the world, and how people got the strength and the courage to step down and take a stand. And many of them had been wanting to do that, but they were forced to remain in, and they felt like that if they didn't step down, their lives will be threatened, and their families' lives, and their families' livelihood. But now we see that the CCP has been dismantled, the TikTok is down, and we know that Evergrande, the largest real estate company owned by the Chinese, actually went bankrupt. They filed bankruptcy here in America last year, and they were forced to liquidate their assets. So the Chinese Communist Party has been overtaken. The Ukrainian mafia has been cleaned up. So that's why Putin went to expose all the stuff that was going on in the deep underground military bases, and he was exposing what Biden was involved in the Ukraine. He exposed what was going on in the labs, all of the diseases that were created there. And you can see some of the evidence that he collected when you go to the House Oversight Committee. So go to oversight.house.gov or Google House Oversight Committee. And then when you go to that, let me see, House Oversight Committee. When you go to the House Oversight Committee's website, then you go to the search engine of that website. It's oversight.house.gov. You type in a Biden. I'll show it to you. Let me see if I can bring it in. And you will see a lot of evidence against Joe Biden. It's really, yes, it is. It's getting real out here in these streets. Knife Child says, go ahead and delete the app. I agree with you. Yes, it's getting real. So I don't know if you guys remember, but James Comer, who is the chair of the House Oversight Committee, has said, I want to say a year or two ago, that he was going to collect a lot of evidence against Biden. And he did it. He did it. And he said he was going to go after him vehemently. So you go here to oversight.house.gov, and here there's a little magnifying glass. You click that on and you type in Biden. At least let me see if you can still find information on Biden. And let's see what comes up. Yep. Still got information here. Information. Comer calls on incoming Attorney General to hold James Biden accountable for lying to Congress about Joe Biden's involvement in corrupt influence peddling schemes. Comer reintroduces, and that was just yesterday on January the 17th. No, was that? Yes, on the 17th. See that? 2025. He's been producing evidence for years. Comer reintroduces legislation requiring federal workers to show up to the office. Hearing wrap up. The Biden administration enhances telework for bureaucrats, jeopardizing agency missions and critical services to the American people. If you keep scrolling through here, you are going to see a lot of eyewitness testimonials from people who used to work for the Biden administration, talk about things he was involved in. You're going to see a check written to the Chinese Communist Party. You're going to see checks and documents that show and prove that Biden and his family were involved with the Ukrainian mafia and involved in selling out secrets to the Ukrainian mafia and to the Chinese Communist Party, as well as to other foreign governments. So it's over for the Biden administration. I know Trump has come in now. He is the president-elect, and he will give his speech on January 20th. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some type of military tribunals. Now, I know a lot of them have already occurred behind the scenes, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some public tribunals. I don't know if it'll happen on the 20th, but it could happen the whole week of next week. With this Arctic blast keeping people in the house, who knows what could happen? So I just want you to stay aware, keep your vibrations high, and know that a lot is going on behind the scenes to prove that indeed, family, we're at the end. We are at the end of the deep state. Okay. Now, remember, I started off this podcast saying that Janet Yellen has said we need to take extraordinary measures because the United States has reached this debt ceiling. And, in order to avoid a debt limit breach, we have to do something that's, out there or extraordinary. And I said, okay, well, pay off the debt or have a debt jubilee, or while you're doing that, also go ahead and allow people to exchange their currencies, because all of the countries are ready. We know that Iraq is ready. We know that their payment system is ready. We know that their banks just went international. We know that Al Sudani made his way to Washington and met with Washington officials. We know he met with many billionaires and entrepreneurs in America and asked them to invest in his country. We know that the Vietnamese president did the same thing. We know the Venezuelan president did the same thing. They all asked for entrepreneurs, billionaires, and Texas billionaires specifically, to invest in their countries because they have resources to exploit. So all of these countries are ready. Many of the sanctions, if not all of the sanctions, have been taken off of all of these countries who were in cahoots with the United States Incorporated. So everybody's ready to do a currency exchange. They're ready to reinstate their currencies back to pre-war rates. And so when you take in account for inflation, we could see higher rates than we anticipated. So if the Iraqi dinar was at like $3.17 before war, and you take in account for inflation, then when you think about reinstating the Iraqi dinar back to its pre-war rate of 17 cents, but you take in account for inflation, that could be $13. Okay, and what about if you take in account for all of the gold being restored back from the Vatican to Iraq? Because remember, the Iraqi President Al Sudani came to power about October 2022, and then he made an announcement in November 2022 that he said that our country has dealt with endemic corruption historically, but my administration tends not to do that. Now, whether or not that's true that his administration is not corrupt, he said, endemic corruption on my watch. We're going to work with other countries to return my stolen money, and we're going to work with the Central Bank of Iraq to revalue the Iraqi dinar against the United States dollar. So he did that. Again, he met with the United States Treasury Department as well. His Treasury Department met with the United States Treasury Department to make sure the payment systems were ready. And then we know that JP Morgan Chase Bank, Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan Chase Bank, they won the bid to put banks in Iraq, and those banks will likely take care of or manage the exchanges there. Now, we all know that Jamie Dimon's name was found on that list that, a lot of people that dealt with children were found on. And so he was against President Trump before, but once it came out that his name was on that list, then Jamie Dimon came out and said, you know what? Trump isn't that bad after all. He said, in fact, Trump, he was kind of right about many things. Like, he was right about the global shutdown. He was right about the economy. And he was right. What he said was he was kind of right about a lot of things, probably because he was trying to save his tail. And so even though he most likely was involved in a lot of things, since his name was on that list, that doesn't mean that the whole banking system is corrupt, because all of the banks that are allowed to stay online and operate have to now be monitored. They have to be Basel III and Basel IV compliant, meaning they have to recognize gold as a tier 1 asset or just recognize gold as money. They also have to be prepared for our tier 2 or foreign investments, which is your currency, your foreign currencies. And the articles, I've shown you the articles that say that the reason why they need your money or your tier 2 assets or foreign reserves is because these currencies will maintain the financial health of the banks and keep the banks from going bankrupt. So the first order of protection is gold. So all the banks have gold. They had to recognize gold as a tier 1 asset. And then they had to recognize your tier 2 assets and be ready to receive them. Those 2 assets will make sure that all the banks are secure. Then you have the Supreme Court of the United States to come out and say this summer that state-sponsored banks can operate outside of and independently from the Federal Reserve central banking system. They can have their own charter, and they are allowed to issue out their own gold-backed currencies. These are state-sponsored banks. Why are they allowed to do that? Because the republic has been restored, because now states can make their own laws without the restraint of the Federal Reserve, without the restraint of the United States Incorporated that was posing as the federal government. That's all been done away with. It's all been dismantled. So now each state will operate as its own country. That's why they have their own lawmakers, their own flag, their own symbols. Each state, now it was incorporated before, all those corporations, they will cease and desist. All attorneys must cease and desist. And any attorney that desires to still operate will have to now be retrained in constitutional law, because attorneys only attorney for you. They speak on your behalf. That's why you have to whisper to them when you're in court, because the judge is actually doing a seance and he's performing a funeral. That's why he dresses in all black, and you're not allowed to speak because you're dead, and you're dead at sea. That was in alignment with admiralty law or maritime law. You were dead at sea. You couldn't speak. You could only whisper because you really don't have a voice. You're a minor. You don't matter to your attorney who attorneys for you. He's not a lawyer. Okay. Those attorneys have to cease and desist. The judges have to cease and desist. And now we are returning to constitutional law. And anybody that desires to represent you or to do write contracts or whatever, or to do your trust, they have to practice constitutional, or not practice, because they're not practicing anything. They have to be experts in constitutional law or common law. So the whole system is changing, and President Trump will make us aware of that, he or his representative, starting on January 20th. And that's why he said prosperity will begin on day one. So having said all that, family, you may go to sleep on Sunday night and wake up Monday morning to a whole new reality. It will be January the 20th. It will be Martin Luther King's birthday celebration day. It will be the inauguration, but it will be the inauguration under the corporate entity, the inauguration under the United States Incorporation, under the old way of doing things. The lawful inauguration actually occurs on March the 4th. So I'd be interested to see what Trump and the White Hats or the Earth Alliance is going to do. I do know that Trump is a transitional president, because we are transitioning into the republic, which is our lawful government. But again, that inauguration isn't supposed to occur until March the 4th. So we are going to see something amazing happen on January 20th, leading up to March the 4th. Hopefully, we will have global currency reset, which we see all the countries now deciding to, and they've all stopped trading with the United States dollar, and they're using their own country's currencies backed by precious metals. So we are really experiencing or witnessing a global currency reset, but we need to have an official announcement of a global currency reset. This happens at the end of every empire. They spend up what they do. They print as much money as they can, or dollars, paper money as they can. They rack up the debt. We've reached the debt ceiling. They buy themselves certain assets, and then they crash up that whole monetary system. Happens at the end of every empire, and then they go to the gold-backed currency, or they go back to a sustainable economic system. So that's called the crack up boom. Print as much money as you can, spend up the money, rack up the debt, then crash the system and move to a new monetary system. That is what we're witnessing. Now, speaking of a new monetary system, you all know that in America, over 45 states have reclaimed silver and gold. That's why the Sound Money Defense League said that 45 states repealed or removed the state's taxes from the sales of precious metals. Under the old regime, once we came off the gold standard, they started to recognize gold as a commodity or as a collectible instead of as money. So if you look at gold as a commodity or a collectible, you can put taxes on the sales of precious metals, and you can tax people that have precious metals, okay? But this will be a non-taxable event. Thank you for the Cash App blessing. I appreciate you. Who was that? Willie Sims, thank you so much. God bless you. Have a smile on you for sending me a Cash App. If you recognize gold as a commodity, you can tax this, but states have taken it upon themselves, how you know we've entered a republic, to say no more are you taxing the sales of precious metals. No more, if a person actually has gold, can the government tax them, because gold is not a commodity, it's not a collectible, it is money. So this is why 45 states have repealed the state sales taxes from the sales of precious metals. And the article states that was written by the Style Money Defense League, that the remaining 5 states that haven't done so will do it in 2025. And I've been covering this for many years. Well, since 2014, I've been talking about a return to gold, but starting in 2020, I started talking about the states moving back to gold lawfully. At the time when I first reported in 2020 about the states actually moving to gold, I talked about how back then it was only 13 states. You can look up articles that talk about the 13 initial states that recognize silver and gold as legal tender. And back then, even in 2020, as early as 2011, you can use silver and gold to buy local goods and services in 13 states. So now you have 45 states, okay? And then the article says that 5 more states will do it this year. For people who don't think you can buy goods and services with silver and gold, I want you to just keep in mind that I showed you a video of a gentleman that was interviewed by Liberty and Finance, a podcast by, was it Kaiser Dunnigan? Liberty and Finance, one of the guys over there interviewed this gentleman, and he said in Canada they had a winter storm, and the banks were closed, the ATM cards weren't working, and a lot of people couldn't get to the bank to get money out the bank. So what they did, those people who had silver coins used the silver coins to barter with merchants, because all merchants recognize silver and gold as money. It's just that people didn't know that, and they were able to get their gas tanks filled. So we will be using gold and silver. We will be using currencies or notes that are backed by gold and silver, and we will be using digital coins in this new reality. So if you want me to, I'll show you the article that says over 45 states. One article says over 45 states repealed the state's taxes from the sales of precious metals, and another article says 45 states have done the same. Thank you so much for the Cash App blessing. But another thing that happened last night was that Banknote World actually went offline. And Banknote World is a currency dealer. And some people were saying it was down for a couple hours. And I did put that in my community section. Within a few hours, it did come back online. But I was like, why? Banknote World was like, we're closed or something like that. I'll see if I can find out what they said, because I did make sure we screenshot that. But Banknote World wasn't the only one. When I put up this on my community section, somebody commented that there were a lot of bank glitches on the 17th. And what was interesting was I got a phone call by a couple of my friends, a military veteran, a couple of my friends that are independent journalists, who said there's going to be some banking glitches on the 17th. They called me the day before on the 16th. They was like, so go ahead and get money out, because on the 17th, there's going to be some bank glitches. Well, here we are. Yesterday on the 17th, Banknote World, their storefront was closed. This was from their website. Storefront is closed. Unfortunately, due to technical issues, our storefront is closed. We can still process your orders through our customer support team. And then somebody put on here, keep an eye on other sites. They said, we're sorry for the inconvenience. But there was one, I want to show you this one comment. Oh, I hope you all can see the comments here. So I try to put things in my community section if I don't have time to go live. Here's a comment. Somebody says, I went to the currency exchange today. That was yesterday. And they were out of dinar for the weekend. They said maybe Tuesday. Let's see. Okay, somebody said they have, they were able to get back on. I want to show you where somebody said, It was closed on my end too at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's out of California. Another podcaster listed this on their Telegram as well. By 11 p.m., it was back up. Okay. Let's see. I want to say, somebody said, that's the reason I couldn't get on the website. Somebody had mentioned that there were bank glitches as well. So it wasn't just Banknote World, though. When I put that on my YouTube channel, I also put it on my Twitter channel. And let me show you. Somebody retweeted me. Tom Siloff retweeted me. Can y'all see this here? He said ktfalways.com is also closed, as are others. I'm seeing a pattern here again. Anyone else want to check? Feel free to post your findings in the comments. So he posted that. This is where a company was temporarily down. Let me plug this up. Hold on. Somebody said I tried to buy some last night and was not able to at Exchange of America. Someone sent me a message last night saying that they couldn't buy IQD on Banknote World. That was, see, that's the 18th. That's today. This is my tweet here where I said Banknote World is closed. So why did I put that up? And then some people in the comment section said that there were still some online dealerships that were open and some were saying that some were closed. I'm putting that up there because at some point they probably will stop selling currencies. So if you are interested in exotic currencies or foreign currencies, do know that banks met last year to determine their preparedness to receive Tier 2 assets. I did a video on that. Why would they meet? To make sure that they were ready. They told us that they needed the currencies to bolster the health of the bank. And I'm going to my YouTube channel right here. So if you want to see that video, it's what it looks like. Here's my YouTube channel where the banks met globally to make sure that they were prepared. It says, great news for currency holders. Are you ready? Banks are ready. Okay, it's right here. You'll see this here. Go and watch that video. I go over all of the articles that talk about banks' preparedness to receive your assets. So I'm not telling anybody what to do. If you desire to get currencies, you might want to do it now. President Trump said that prosperity begins day one. We know that all the countries are ready. We know that he wants to inject trillions of dollars into the global economy. He said that before he left office the first time. So do what you can do, whatever you can afford, because there are some currencies that are still like $10, $15, $20. Please put in the chat what those currencies are. Iraqi dinar, Vietnamese dong. Get lower denominations if you don't have in your budget for larger denominations. Indonesian rupee, Indian rupee, Venezuelan bolivar, and there are other currencies, family. You could put it in the chat. So I just want to let you know that, family, that things are vamping up. What year? In the ZIM 2008, 2009, the AA or AB series. My credit union just told me today that money isn't going away. That's a lie. I was okay. I guess we'll see. So thank you for the Cash App blessing. I appreciate you so much. God bless you. Have a smile on you. And somebody also sent me a note. Hold on. What is this? Keep checking in, family. I saw that TikTok isn't available right now. Yes. So TikTok, their time is up. Their empire has frozen. All of their powers are frozen. That may be why we're having an our Arctic blast. They do everything in cold. Plus, they want everybody in right now. You're going to go to sleep on Sunday night and wake up Monday morning to a whole new reality. It's now 11:11. Happy 11:11. A new portal has opened, family. So we can end with that. If anybody desires Cash App blessing, and for those who have, thank you so much. My Cash App $ Mama Kia. That's $ MAMAKIA 13. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope I've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. That's it, family. We are going to experience a whole new, beautiful, glorious reality. I will see you on tomorrow. We'll do another podcast, but I just wanted to come on and let you all know that their time is up. Their empire has frozen. Tick tock, their time is up. I love you, family. Good night. Rest well.